Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our midweek reflections. For those of you who joined us last week, I know we had some issues with the chat, so I hope that we don't have some of those issues this week. To kind of confront that, I want to ask you guys to hold off on commenting on other people's responses, at least until the live stream is over. So if you feel the need to post a reply to this live stream, by all means, please do it even during the live stream. But if you want to comment to someone else's comment, just hold off on that. Let's hold off on that until this live stream is over, and then we can kind of move through the conversation after this is done. So come back in after the streaming is done, and we will continue our discussion there. So for today, our live stream, our reflection, I wanted to talk about weakness. And yeah, it's a touchy subject, right? I mean, when we think about weakness, I think the thoughts that come through our mind is maybe fear, insecurity, right? On top of which, if someone were to say, how do you confront your weakness? Your first response would be, well, I'm afraid to face my fears, right? I mean, it's a normal response. No one would think you're wacky if you're afraid to face your fears. So when someone says, yeah, let's face our weaknesses, let's face our fears, what is our response to that? How do we respond to that? I think a lot of times when we have to face our fears or face these things that are weaknesses in our lives, a lot of times it shows up in moments of confrontation, right? When something is attacking us, whatever that might be it a person or whatever, a situation in your life. When we're confronted with something that's attacking our life, we respond to that in a certain way. Usually, we respond to it by showing aggression or defensive posture. We take a posture of strength, right? No one responds to your own weakness with more weakness, right? You don't say, you know what? In this moment when my weakness is being attacked, I'm going to show more weakness in my life, right? No one really responds in that kind of way. But isn't that what Scripture says for us to do in some ways, right? I mean, when Jesus says that an enemy comes at you, he says, show him the other cheek, right? If somebody hits you, give him the other cheek. How do you respond to that? When you're attacked, how do you respond with greater humility? I mean, when you think about it, it kind of flies in the face of everything that you understand to be true, right? God is saying, when you are attacked, when your defensive postures feel like they need to react, don't react in that way. Instead, react with greater humility. I think about Scripture, and I think if a moment that comes up really clearly is in that kind of situation is Adam and Eve, right? You see, Adam and Eve, they've been told by God to not eat the fruit of the tree that is forbidden, and yet they do. And so when God responds to that and comes and says, where are you? What is their response? Their response is shame. And then when they're confronted by God about it, what is Adam's response? He is blaming Eve and saying, well, the woman, she gave it to me to eat, right? I mean, isn't that our response in a lot of ways when we're confronted with our weaknesses, confronted with the things that are painful, maybe in our lives? We don't want to respond with greater humility. We want to respond from a place of strength. But Jesus didn't respond from a place of strength. He responded from a place of humility. So I want to ask you, my question for you during this time is, in your life, what does humility look like? How do you respond to the to the fears, to the things that you have to confront in your life? And how does humility show up within that? So let's take that time. If you want to share a personal story, please by all means do. It doesn't have to be your greatest weakness, but just be honest. And let's be clear with one another, careful with one another, and respond in love and show humility with one another. Let's take this time. Thanks.